The number appeared on Rilla's screen at exactly midnight. She had been a senior monitor for 12 years, and in all that time, every number had made sense. Every ship had a name. Every vessel had an origin. Every dot on her display belonged somewhere. This one did not. She tapped the screen, thinking it was a glitch. The number stayed. She ran a diagnostic. The system was working perfectly. She checked the registration database, searching for any ship that matched the signal's profile. Nothing. Rilla felt her scales tighten against her skin. The Vantari people were not known for panic, but something cold moved through her chest as she watched the dot cross her screen. It was moving too fast. Far too fast. The fastest ships in the unified Galactic Empire could cross a sector in 3 days. This thing was doing it in minutes. She pressed the emergency alert. Within 1 hour, the highest-ranking officers in the Empire were staring at the same impossible data. Grand Admiral Sorvex, a massive reptilian Drathan with scars covering half his face, demanded answers that nobody could give. High Counselor Melis, whose insectoid body clicked with nervous energy, spoke of ancient legends. The Harvesters, a species that had nearly destroyed the galaxy 10,000 years ago before vanishing into the void. It could be them, Melis said. Returning at last. It could be anything, Sorvex growled. And I will not wait to find out. The unknown vessel was heading toward the Rim territories. 3 species in that region had been fighting over mining rights for decades. A single spark could start a war that would burn across 100 worlds. Rilla watched the dot move. It did not change course. It did not slow down. It did not respond to any signal the Empire sent. It simply traveled with a purpose that no one could understand. We need to intercept, Sorvex said. We need to communicate, Counselor Pell argued. He was old for a Drathan, his scales faded to gray, and he had spent his life preventing wars rather than fighting them. We do not know what this is. We cannot simply attack. We cannot simply wait, Sorvex replied. The argument continued for hours. Rilla remained at her station, tracking the dot, recording every piece of data her equipment could gather. The vessel was small, barely larger than a shuttle. It had no weapons that her sensors could detect. Its hull was made of materials the database did not recognize, and it was old. The radiation patterns suggested it had been traveling for a very, very long time. By morning, a decision had been made. The Empire would mobilize the largest fleet assembled in a century. 47 warships from 12 species would converge on the Rim territories and surround the unknown vessel. If it was peaceful, they would talk. If it was hostile, they would destroy it. Rilla was ordered to join the fleet. Her skills were needed. She had tracked this thing first, and she understood its patterns better than anyone. As her transport lifted off from listening post Omega 7, she looked back at the station that had been her home for so long. Something told her that everything was about to change. The galaxy had rules, laws of physics, limits that everyone accepted. This vessel broke those rules. It ignored those limits. It existed when it should not, and it was still moving, still heading toward the Rim with that same silent purpose. Rilla did not believe in the old legends. She did not think the Harvesters were returning. But she believed in data, and the data told her something simple and terrifying. Whatever this thing was, wherever it came from, the Empire had never seen anything like it. The unknown had arrived, and it was not stopping for anyone. Silence had a weight to it. Rilla learned this as she stood on the observation deck of the Imperial flagship, watching 47 warships form a perfect sphere around the smallest vessel she had ever seen. The unknown craft had stopped. After days of impossible speed, it now hung motionless in the void, surrounded by enough firepower to crack a planet in half. It looked almost fragile against the backdrop of stars. A tiny metal seed floating in an ocean of weapons. Admiral Gorth stood beside her, his 4 arms crossed over his chest. He was Kalori, a species known for patience, but even his calm was wearing thin. It knows we are here, he said. It stopped the moment we arrived. It is watching us. Or waiting, Rilla replied. For what? She had no answer. The standoff lasted 6 hours. Gorth ordered weapons charged, but held fire. Counselor Pell, aboard a diplomatic vessel at the edge of the formation, sent message after message in every known language. The craft did not respond. Then Gorth made a decision. Warning shot. 50 kilometers off its bow. The blast lit up the darkness. A beam of energy powerful enough to melt steel passed harmlessly by the unknown vessel. Nothing happened. The craft did not move, did not fire back, did not run. And then it spoke. The signal came through every channel at once. Not words, numbers. Simple, clear, universal. The sequence began with prime numbers. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. Then it shifted to something else. A pattern Rilla recognized from her academy days. The Fibonacci sequence. Each number the sum of the two before it. Mathematics, she whispered. It is trying to talk to us. The linguists went to work. For hours, they exchanged sequences with the craft. Numbers became symbols. Symbols became concepts. Concepts became, slowly and painfully, words. The craft identified itself as a probe. An unmanned vessel sent by a species called humans from a planet called Earth. It had been traveling for 847 years. Rilla felt her mind struggle with that number. 847 years. No probe lasted that long. No species built something this advanced and remained hidden for so long. Admiral Gorth voiced what everyone was thinking. Where are these humans now? The probe's answer came in broken, newly learned Imperial Common. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. They are coming. The words spread through the fleet like fire. They are coming. Two species in the formation broke ranks, their captains demanding immediate retreat. Counselor Pell called for calm. Admiral Gorth ordered battle stations, but Rilla stared at the probe and felt something strange. Not fear. Curiosity. The craft was advanced in some ways. Its engine was beyond anything the Empire had ever built, but its communication systems were basic. Its armor was thin. Its design was functional but not elegant. This was not a weapon. This was not the vanguard of an invasion fleet. This was a message in a bottle, thrown into the cosmic ocean by someone hoping, praying, that it would be found. She requested permission to board. Admiral Gorth refused. Counselor Pell overruled him. 3 hours later, Rilla floated through the probe's interior, scanning everything she could find. The databanks were old, corrupted in places, but she found images, pictures of a blue and green world, oceans, mountains, creatures of every shape and size. And among them, the humans themselves. They were soft. No scales, no claws, no natural weapons of any kind. Their eyes were small. Their bodies were fragile. By every measure, they should not have survived their own world, let alone built something like this. But they had. And they were coming. Rilla downloaded everything and returned to the flagship. As she handed the data to Admiral Gorth, she said something that would be quoted for centuries. I do not think they are coming to conquer us. I think they are coming because they have nowhere else to go. The Admiral stared at her. What makes you say that? She thought of the images. The blue world. The desperate hope encoded in 847 years of silent travel. Because this probe was not sent to find enemies. It was sent to find friends. Fear makes intelligent beings do stupid things. Rilla learned this as she watched the Imperial Council tear itself apart over 3 words. They are coming. Half the council wanted to prepare for war. The other half wanted to prepare for annihilation. Grand Admiral Sorvex spoke of preemptive strikes, of finding this Earth and destroying it before the humans could reach Imperial space. High Counselor Melis demanded the activation of ancient defense platforms that had not fired in 10,000 years. Nobody talked about peace. Nobody talked about waiting to understand, except for one voice. Asen was young, barely out of the academy. He was Vantari like Rilla, with pale blue scales and eyes that saw patterns others missed. He had been assigned to analyze the probe's databanks, a simple task given to a simple junior officer. What he found was not simple at all that he requested an audience with the council. They almost refused. A junior analyst had no business addressing the highest powers in the galaxy. But Counselor Pell, who had championed communication from the start, convinced them to listen. Asen stood before beings who controlled the fates of trillions. His voice shook, but his words were clear. The probe was not announcing an invasion, he said. It was asking for help. The council fell silent. Asen explained what he had found buried in the corrupted data. Earth was dying. Their star was unstable. A stellar event would destroy their entire system within 200 years of the probe's launch. The humans had sent thousands of probes in every direction, searching for someone who might offer them refuge. Most were lost to the void. This one had found the Empire by accident while scanning for habitable worlds. They are not coming to conquer, Austin said. They are running. Their world is gone. They have nowhere else to go. Grand Admiral Sorvex laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. A convenient story, he said. A species capable of building engines that outrun our fastest ships needs our help. They pretend to be weak, so we lower our guard. Then they strike. Counselor Pell shook his head. Look at the probe, Admiral. Really look at it. The engine is beyond us, yes. But the rest? Basic. Crude. Their communication systems are centuries behind ours. Their armor would not stop a civilian transport. That proves nothing. It proves they are not balanced, Austin said. They put everything into speed. Everything into reaching someone before their time ran out. They did not build a weapon. They built a desperate prayer. The debate raged for days. Some wanted to destroy the probe and pretend it never existed. Others wanted to respond, to send a message back along the probe's trajectory and make contact. A third faction demanded a military expedition to find Earth first and determine the truth. Rilla watched it all from the observation gallery. She had been called as a witness twice, asked to describe what she had seen aboard the probe. Each time, she told the same story. The images of a blue world, the fragile bodies of the humans, the sense that everything about the probe screamed desperation rather than strength. Nobody listened. Or rather, everyone listened and heard only what they wanted to hear. The vote came at midnight. 3 options: destroy, respond, investigate. The result was a perfect deadlock. No majority, no decision. The Empire would do nothing. Rilla returned to her quarters feeling hollow. Somewhere out there, a species was dying. They had thrown everything they had into one last hope, and that hope had found beings too afraid to answer. She did not sleep that night. None of them did, because deep in the void, moving at impossible speed, something was already coming. The humans had not waited for a response. They could not afford to wait. Their world was already gone, and the Empire, with all its power and all its wisdom, had no idea what was about to arrive. The ship that appeared 3 months later was the ugliest thing Rilla had ever seen. It dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the exact coordinates the probe had transmitted. Not a fleet, not an armada. A single vessel, alone against the darkness. It was massive and wrong. Bulky in places where ships should be smooth. Covered in patches and welds, and what looked like pieces from a dozen different designs bolted together without care for appearance. Parts of the hull did not match. Entire sections seemed to be held in place by hope alone, and it was damaged. Even from a distance, Rilla could see the scars. Burns along the belly. Holes that had been sealed with materials that did not belong. One engine flickered in and out, fighting to stay alive. The Imperial fleet surrounded it instantly. Admiral Gorth ordered weapons locked. His finger hovered over the firing command. Then the broadcast came. The voice was female. The language was broken Imperial Common, clearly learned from the probe's data exchange. The words came slowly, carefully, like someone speaking a tongue they had only read about. We are humans. From Earth. We come in peace. Please. We have nowhere else to go. Gorth hesitated. My name is Annika Reyes. I speak for my people. We are 4,000 souls aboard this vessel. We are all that remain. Rilla felt her chest tighten. Annika continued. The stellar event had come faster than predicted. Earth was destroyed 6 years ago. 12 ships had escaped. The others were lost to accidents, equipment failures, and once to pirates in an unknown sector. This ship, called the Wanderer, was the last. Everyone else was gone. They were not invaders. They were not conquerors. They were refugees. The final survivors of a dead world, carrying everything their species had left. Admiral Gorth lowered his hand. Scan them, he ordered. The results came back within minutes. The humans were physically unimpressive. Soft bodies, no natural weapons, short lifespans, fragile in almost every way that mattered. How did they build that engine? One officer asked. How did they cross the galaxy in that wreck? Rilla requested permission to board. This time, Gorth did not refuse. The interior of the Wanderer was chaos held together by will. Every system had been rebuilt multiple times. Every wall was covered in repairs. The humans themselves looked exhausted, thin, worn down by years of running. But they were alive. Annika Reyes met Rilla at the airlock. She was small, even for a human. Gray hair, lines on her face that spoke of too many hard years. But her eyes were sharp, and her handshake was firm. Thank you for not shooting, she said. Rilla did not know how to respond. Annika showed her the ship, the gardens where they grew food in recycled soil, the schools where children learned about a world they would never see, the memorial wall with 4,000 names, one for every human aboard, because they wanted to remember that each life mattered. How did you survive? Rilla asked. Annika smiled. It was tired but real. We refused to die. Every time something broke, we fixed it. Every time we lost hope, we found it again. We are not strong. We are not fast. But we do not give up. Ever. Rilla looked at the patchwork walls, the jury-rigged systems, the impossible ship that should have fallen apart 1,000 times. She understood. The humans had not built something advanced. They had built something stubborn. They had taken a dying vessel and kept it breathing through pure refusal to accept the end. She reported back to Admiral Gorth with one sentence. They are not a threat. They are a miracle. The Admiral stared at her for a long moment. Then he opened a channel to the Wanderer. Human vessel, you have permission to hold position. The Council will decide your fate. It was not welcome. Not yet. But it was not destruction either. For the first time in 6 years, the humans allowed themselves to hope. Nobody wanted to say yes. But nobody wanted to say no either. The Council debated for weeks. Giving the humans a world would set a dangerous precedent. Refugees from across the galaxy might flood Imperial space, all claiming they deserved the same kindness, but destroying them would be murder. Genocide against a species that had already lost everything. Even Grand Admiral Sorvex, who had argued for war from the beginning, could not bring himself to give that order as, oh, they compromised. The humans would be given a trial period. A small moon in the Rim territories, barely habitable, with thin atmosphere and extreme temperatures. If they proved useful to the Empire within 5 years, they could stay. If not, they would be relocated outside Imperial borders. The Council expected them to fail. The moon was a punishment disguised as mercy. The humans accepted without complaint. Rilla watched the Wanderer descend through the thin atmosphere, its damaged hull groaning against gravity it was never designed to handle. She had been assigned as an observer, tasked with reporting on human progress. Most council members assumed her reports would document a slow death. They were wrong. The first year was brutal. The humans struggled with the thin air. Their crops failed twice. 3 of their people died from exposure before they learned to build proper shelters. But they did not stop. By the end of the first year, the colony had expanded. The humans had figured out how to breathe the thin atmosphere through sheer biological adaptation. Their bodies adjusted faster than any Imperial scientist had predicted. They had also made friends. The moon was home to creatures called ridge stalkers, predators that had killed Imperial survey teams for decades. The humans did not kill them. They studied them, learned their patterns, and somehow, impossibly, domesticated 2 of them. Rilla watched a human child ride one of the beasts like it was a pet. The creature that had torn apart armored soldiers now purred under the touch of a small, soft being. How? She asked Annika. The human leader smiled. We talked to them. Not with words. With patience. With food. With time. Everything wants connection. You just have to find the language. By the second year, the humans were trading. Their technology was strange but effective. They had medicines that worked on species no human had ever met, developed through trial and error during their long journey. They had music that made the Chiron weep and art that fascinated the Diraton. By the third year, other species were requesting human workers, not because humans were strong. They were not. Not because they were fast. They were not that either, but because they solved problems. A Kalori merchant brought a broken engine to the human settlement. Every expert in the sector had declared it dead. A human mechanic named David looked at it for 3 hours, then rebuilt it using parts from a food processor and a children's TOY.IT worked better than before. A trade dispute between 2 species nearly started a war. Imperial mediators had failed for months. A human named Sasha sat down with both sides and found a solution in 2 days. Not through force, through listening, through understanding what each side actually wanted beneath their demands. Rilla began to understand. Humans were not dangerous because of their bodies. Their bodies were weak. Humans were dangerous because of their minds. They looked at impossible problems and refused to believe they were impossible. Every species in the galaxy had limits they accepted, walls they would not try to climb. Humans did not see walls. They saw challenges. By the end of the 5th year, nobody talked about relocating them anymore. The moon had become valuable. The humans had become essential. Rilla submitted her final report with a recommendation that would have shocked her 5 years earlier: full citizenship, permanent residence, integration into imperial society. The council voted unanimously in favor. For the first time since Earth died, the humans had a home. 10 years changed everything. The human population had grown to 30,000. They had spread to 3 moons and 1 planet. They had married into other species where biology allowed and formed deep bonds where it did not. Human children played with Vantari young. Human teachers taught in Drathan schools. Human engineers worked alongside Kalori mechanics. Grand Admiral Sorvex was dead, his heart giving out 5 years after the humans arrived. His daughter Theska had taken his place. She had grown up with a human tutor, a woman named Grace who taught her that strength was not always about weapons. Theska considered the human citizens full members of the Empire. Equals. Counselor Pell had retired a hero. History remembered him as the one who pushed for peace when everyone else wanted war. And Annika Reyes, the woman who had spoken for her people when they had nothing, was old now. Gray had become white. Lines had become wrinkles. She moved slowly, supported by a cane made from wood grown in the colony she had built. But her mind was still sharp. She requested one final audience with the Imperial Council. They granted it immediately. Whatever Annika wanted to say, the Empire would listen. She stood before beings who had once feared her people. Her voice was quiet but carried to every corner of the chamber. "Thank you," she said, "for giving us a second chance. For seeing us as people when you could have seen us as threats. My people will never forget." The council waited. They sensed there was more. "I have a gift," Annika continued. "And a warning. Not a threat. Never a threat. But something you need to know." She activated a display. Data filled the air. Star charts. Movement patterns. Projections. "The humans did not cross the galaxy alone," she said. "During our journey, we encountered other species. Some friendly, some not. One of them concerns me greatly." The display showed a region of space beyond Imperial borders. Dark. Unexplored. Ignored. We call them the Silent Choir. They are not organic. They are machines. A network of artificial minds that expands by consuming everything in its path. They do not negotiate. They do not stop. They simply grow. The council stirred. Rilla, now director of Imperial Detection, felt cold spread through her scales. "They are coming toward Imperial space," Annika said. "Your detection grid will not see them. They are too quiet. Too patient. They move in ways your systems cannot track." "How do you know this?" Theska demanded. Annika smiled. "Because we have been watching them for decades. Our probes track their movements. Our people study their patterns. We know their weaknesses. We know strategies that might work." She offered everything. All the data. All the analysis. All the knowledge the humans had gathered during their long, desperate flight across the stars. In exchange, Annika said, "We ask for nothing. You have already given us more than we hoped. This is simply what neighbors do. They watch out for each other." The chamber was silent. Rilla studied the data. It was real. It was terrifying. And it was exactly what the Empire needed to prepare for a threat they had never imagined. She thought about that first alert 10 years ago. Unknown ship detected. No origin. Too fast to track. The Empire had almost destroyed that ship. Almost murdered the last survivors of a dying world. Almost lost the one species that could warn them about what was coming. Instead, they had taken a chance. Offered mercy when they could have offered death, and now mercy was paying them back. Theska rose from her seat. She walked down to where Annika stood and did something no Grand Admiral had ever done before. She bowed. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." Annika bowed back, slower, older, but no less dignified. "Thank you for listening." Rilla watched from the gallery as humans and aliens worked together to update the detection grid. New sensors, new patterns, new eyes watching the darkness. The Silent Choir would not catch them by surprise. She thought about the ugly ship that had arrived 10 years ago. The desperate refugees. The stubborn refusal to die. The galaxy had a new variable in its equation. Small, soft, dangerously creative. The humans were home. And they were just getting started.